Hello, and welcome to this profile of Kate Mary Stretton, always known as Katie, and a leading character in the new historical novel 27 Church Street, The Gathering Storm, that starts a series of novels based in Kidderminster's industrial past and on the large family of which she was a part. Katie is my great-great-aunt. Born in 1861, Katie lived a long and interesting life until her death in 1954. I have a few memories of her, as I was born in 1950. Katie was a prolific keeper of photographs and ephemera that provide a wealth of material that has enabled me to tell this story. This narrated slideshow is compiled using Katie's own material, giving you an insight into her life and a glimpse of her character. The video is about 20 minutes long. Kate Mary Stretton, always known as Katie, was one of only two girls born to Samuel and Kate Stretton, who had 15 children. Katie was born on the 28th of December 1861, just a year after elder brother Lionel, and being the fourth in her generation, undoubtedly ended up helping her mother to look after the large family as she grew up. Perhaps this influenced her decision not to marry. She lived a full life, clearly had a good sense of humour, and was an excellent sportswoman, with artistic skills and huge energy in community activities that are recalled in this story. Having fallen into the role of one of the family historians, I've already produced a website telling much of the story of the family, whose importance in medical history and the social story of Kidderminster is well documented therein. Katie is a large character in the family story and is a key character in the storylines of the 27 Church Street series of books. This production aims to give a real flavour of her character and life. This slide shows Samuel and Katie's large family. Both Katie and Lionel are highlighted in red here. 13th child in the long list is Hubert Arthur, whom we will encounter later in Katie's life story. Being born next to each other, Katie and Lionel were clearly likely to have been close and shared responsibilities within the large family. They are both pictured here in 1871, when Lionel was 11 and Katie was 10. In her early days, she lived with the other children in the family home, Sunnyside, adjacent to the Mill Street Infirmary. This was much later converted to a nursing home, then finally demolished to make way for a housing estate. After this, she lived for a time at 27 Church Street, but then later moved to Droitwich. Of the 15 children that Kate bore, 3 died in childbirth or shortly thereafter. This picture, taken in 1881, is a remarkable record of the family in which all 12 surviving children are present with their parents. Over a few years following this, Samuel gave 5 of his boys £100 each and waved them off to New Zealand to make new lives over there. One, Harry Weston, who went in 1883, was only 16 years old when he departed. Of the 12 surviving children, only 2 were girls, Katie, the 4th born, and Gertrude, the 8th. As mentioned in the introduction, Katie kept much memorabilia, providing lots of material which has been drawn upon for this record. Included in the archive on the family website are 7 complete photo albums, offering plenty of research opportunities to identify many of the people and places. Of her many interests, Katie was part of an amateur dramatic group. Here she is in costume, on the left in the black and white picture, and on the right in the coloured one. One of Katie's other interests was clearly that of being a talented artist, of which these are an example. And these 2 more examples from her paintings book. With her love of the outdoors, Katie was a keen cyclist, whether on 3 wheels or on 2 wheels. I was amused to hear a family anecdote from my father, told to me by his wife Gina and recorded by me in 2012. This picture comes courtesy of Google AI, imagining the moment.
Lionel told me a story he always laughed about Auntie Katie. She was cycling down Church Street, probably on some penny farthing or
Yeah.
awful old bike.
She was never married, was she?
No.
Yeah.
And she seemed to lose her brakes, and she was very afraid because she couldn't slow, but she thought quickly, and there was a policeman walking up the pavement towards her, quite near her, and when she reached him, she simply left the bicycle to run on, flung her arms around the policeman, who caught her. The bike travelled on and then came to an inevitable stop. But I always admired her quick thinking, and I can just see this in my mind. And every time I used to look at the miniature which we had on the wall, I always used to think of this story.
That was the strong arm of the law rather than the long arm.
Yes.
This picture of Katie with one of her brothers was taken by her brother Hubert, who was a photographer with a studio and also is credited with many of the photographs in Katie's albums. And here is another family photo with Katie dressed in her finery on the right. Another of Katie's interests and skills were apparent on the tennis court. Several of the pictures from her photo albums show her either individually or with groups of players. Playing competitively, Katie was clearly successful, as this silver trophy from the local club records, winning first prize in the handicapped singles competition at the Kidderminster Club in 1897. Also in 1897, she played in a competition in Bournemouth where she won a prize, a silver-plated backhand mirror. This was donated to the Wimbledon Museum in 1985. At this same time, she also attracted the attention of a C.C. Brinton, who penned this ditty, headed "Now by my holiday, here comes Katharina," Taming of the Shrew, Act 5, Scene 2. A braw gay golfer is Miss Kate. She's golfing early, golfing late. At tennis too she finely plays, and all beholders doth amaze. To clubs unnumbered she fulfils a secretary's post and mills, arranges twixt her club and others, and many sundry little bothers. Her bike's the finest in the place, admired by all the populace. She rides on it throughout the city, this clever and accomplished Kitty. She scorches up the hills like mad, resembling some post office lad, and any one the road you met on would tell you who? Oh, that's Miss Stretton. You asked me in your book to write, I say yes. Well, have I written what is right? Oh, K.S. Signed, C.E. Brinton, 9th of April, 1897. An example of Katie's sense of humour, this cartoon has hidden depths, folding out to reveal what is below the waterline. And another example from 1903 when she was 42, entitled Recipe for a Kiss. To one piece of a shady nook, add a little moonlight. Take for granted 2 people. Press into 2 strong hands 1 small soft one. Sift lightly 3 ounces of romance. Stir in a floating ruffle. 1 or 2 whispers. Dissolve half a dozen glances in a cupful of silence. Dust in a quantity of hesitation, 1 ounce of resistance, and 2 of yielding. Let 2 pairs of lips meet. Flavour with a slight scream and set aside to cool. The archive of family memorabilia and ephemera contains several of Katie's items, this unassuming storybook being something of a surprise when I first saw it. Entitled Reminiscences of Our Youthful Days and co-written with her cousin Rosie Wood, it gives an insight into the characters and maybe a suggestion of relationships never realised. There is no date giving any clues as to when it was written, but the title suggests that it was later in her life. Here is the start of the story. The following pages are a correct account of a few weeks spent in seclusion at a watering place on the south coast of England. Ordinary books have 1 heroine, but as we aspire to be extraordinary, we have 2. We will not presume to give a full description of our fair charmers, as words would fail us, were we for 1 instant to endeavour to give an adequate account of their many and varied attractions. Suffice it to say, they are of medium height, and, as their friends often tell them, would do splendidly to run in tandem. Need we add that having from their infancy been excluded from the companionship of the sterner sex, they have learnt, as alas few of our maidens do, to look upon mankind as a species of ogre to be avoided on all possible occasions and regarded with awe and solemn deference. The elderly cousin, Rosie by name, being of a very demure and serious disposition, was sometimes greatly concerned by the budding frivolity of her younger relative, who rejoiced in the name of Katie, and saw with great disquietude that notwithstanding her Puritan bringing up, Katie, erring daughter of Eve, permitted her restless eyes occasionally to alight on the well-cut black hair of some elderly lord of creation. The one recreation allowed these two damsels was bathing, and that's probably a good point to stop telling this story. Next is a notebook, or maybe better described as a scrapbook, containing various miscellaneous content. This is headed Original Notes, November the 7th, 1892, but it certainly goes on a bit further than that. This page includes a couple of entries, the first item being entitled The London Bus. A friend of mine, while in town, had occasion to ride in a bus. She noticed opposite her a very sedate-looking gentleman, and next to him a lady. Presently a young fellow got in, and, as he was doing so, clumsily dropped a parcel, whereupon he exclaimed, "Damn!" The sedate-looking gentleman was greatly shocked, and called the youth to order. "How dare you say that before my wife?" said he. The youth innocently remarked, "Beg pardon, sir, didn't know the lady wished to speak first." Then some limericks, not necessarily PC today, and a code which I couldn't decode, but which AI tells me. This image contains text written in a substitution cipher common in personal journals from the 19th and early 20th centuries to hide scandalous or private thoughts. The limericks are easier to interpret. First one. There is a young girl of Kilkenny who is worried by lovers so many that the saucy young elf means to raffle herself, and the tickets are 2 for a penny. The second one. There was a young girl named Bianca who retired while the ship was at anchor, but awoke with dismay when she heard the mate say, "We must pull up the top sheet and spank her." The scrapbook contains many linguistic and word games. This one a list of words ending in ant. A very greedy ant, cormorant. An enormous ant, elephant. A fighting ant, militant. Then, in similar vein, Kate's history. Kate had a twin sister, duplicate. Kate argues with her, altercate. Kate takes too much whiskey, intoxicate. The archive of material kept by Katie doesn't include much in the way of letters, but these undoubtedly featured highly in her life, suggested by the artily embellished envelopes that she did keep. The top left one here is addressed to her when she was living in 27 Church Street in 1883, when she was 22. The other two are addressed to her in Sunnyside in 1878, while she was 17 years old and living at home with her parents. This was an unusual find, presumably an entertainment of the times. Katie collected thumbprints from her family and friends. On the left, her parents, Samuel, Kate, and her own, and on the right, brother Lionel and his wife Lucy, with nephew John Weston. Another similar book, Ghosts of My Friends, records their signatures by folding the page whilst the ink is still wet. This page has the ghosts of her nephew, Samuel Horton, and Lucy, her sister-in-law. This was an interesting find, a graphological analysis of Katie's character made in 1889 when she was 28. There is quite a lot here, how accurate one can only guess, but it includes: she has refined and artistic tastes, is honourable, proud, and fair-dealing, and is both determined and yielding, can be very determined at times, but often does not trouble to assert herself. There is no great love of hard work, but love of recreation and gratification, especially of a social and exciting character, seem to afford most satisfaction to her tastes. There is a natural affinity for the society of the opposite sex. Here are a couple more photographs. and her visiting card from when she had moved to Droitwich. Katie's enthusiasm for the game of tennis and her role in the local club is recorded in this letter, headed The Kidderminster Lawn Tennis Club, and dated August the 3rd, 1900. Dear Sir or Madam, it has been suggested by several members of the above club that on this, the 21st year of its existence, the valuable services of Miss Stretton should be recognised. It is acknowledged that the club owes its present prosperity, not to say its very existence, to her untiring energy and unselfish efforts. Subscriptions, limited to 2 shillings and sixpence, will be received by Miss E. R. Talbot, Whitfield, and Miss Harvey Blakebrook, signed Neville Broom, F. J. Coney, H. Brockman. And now we move on to Katie's keen interest in golf, recorded in several appreciation documents from the archive. This first one from Kidderminster Golf Club. Dear Miss Stretton, a few members of the Kidderminster Golf Club recently expressed to me a desire to present to you a small token of their gratitude for your kindness in providing tea in the pavilion, and they asked me to say that they especially appreciate your personal efforts on our very enjoyable Saturday evenings. I have much pleasure in sending you from the members, as in list annexed, a gold watch, which we beg you to accept with our sincere thanks. Believe me, yours very sincerely, E. A. Mackintosh, January 1903. Some years later, another appreciation of her efforts. On Monday, January the 25th, 1913, a silver tea service and caddy was presented to Miss Stretton by the members of the Kidderminster Golf Club upon her resignation of the on-secretaryship of the ladies' section of the club, as a token of the esteem and affection in which she is held by the members, and in recognition of her interest in the club, for which she has done such good work for the past 15 years. On Sec. 1898 to 1913. And here she is, pictured with the tea service itself. Then, in 1914, the Kidderminster Golf Club was featured in the Golfing Gentlewomen magazine, with Katie pictured on the left of the second line. Her address book had a lot of action, and this is her birthdays book, which is a very useful reference book for the family. Katie was very active in fundraising for the hospital. No doubt she had numerous methods, but this is one for which we have a record, and which is somewhat unusual. Some of her 5 tortoises pulling carts to collect donations at local events. We've seen earlier references to Katie living first in the childhood home Sunnyside, then 27 Church Street. But in the early 1900s, she wanted her own place and built Parkwich, backing onto the Lido Park at Droitwich, and lived there for the rest of her life. This picture of the living room taken in period. Katie shared the house with her brother Hubert after his wife died in 1920. Anne Butler, great niece of Katie, recalls. Hubert Arthur also lived at Parkwich, largely in the kitchen with a huge mantelpiece and china pantry. He was a lovely, cheerful man with silver-rimmed glasses and loads of clocks all over the huge mantelpiece. He was a great photographer and carpenter. All the clocks worked, and they obviously were all wound up. I remember he used to wear +4s and smoked a pipe. He was very kind and lovely. Katie died in 1954, and this photo was taken in her garden at Parkwich in 1951 at the age of 90. Anne Butler recalls, I think I was about 4 when I first remember Auntie Katie, and I used to visit her at Parkwich in Droitwich. She was always in a long black dress, and to me always had purple cheeks. Sometimes she was sewing very fine drawn threadwork on linen sheets or doing tatting with mother-of-pearl shuttles. I also remember, if it was sunny, we used to go through a little gate in the garden to the Lido Park. She was not to me a jolly person, more sort of stately and overpowering. Katie would have been about 80 at this time. And there concludes this resume of Katie's long and full life. She clearly had a lot of fun and achieved a lot. She is a key character in the 27 Church Street series of novels, and I hope you will enjoy reading these.